Am I the a-hole for continuing to split the bills equally with my fiancé? My fiancé, 27 female, and I, 34 male, have been together for about 4 years. We met in college when she was a senior and I was in grad school. We moved in together after she graduated and got a job. At the time, she was making about $75,000 per year while I was making $18,000 per year. We discussed our finances before moving in together and came to the mutual agreement that we should not mix finances and split the bills equally. The rent and utilities was split in half. When it came to groceries and outings, sometimes I would pay for it and other times she picked up the bill. It wasn't exactly equal, but close enough that no one kept track and complained. This also meant she built up a healthy savings and had disposable income while I was living paycheck to paycheck. But I didn't complain or even felt any resentment at all. The way I figured it, she worked hard for her degree and job, so she deserved every penny. I also knew my payday would come when I graduate. My payday came sooner than expected, as during my last year in grad school, I stumbled across a long-term problem in my field and came up with a solution that I turned into a patent. The process of building a prototype, testing, and patenting was very expensive, so I barely ate that year and lost about 20 pounds. I threw everything I had into it. When I got a patent pending designation, I showed my professors and one of them hooked me up with someone in the industry. They hired me a month before I graduated and licensed my patent. I've been at my job for a little over a year, and in that time, I've made 7 figures in combined salary and licensing fee. We still live in the same apartment. It's in the middle of our work and right in the heart of the shopping and restaurant district. I still dress the same, but I do have a nicer truck. Nothing crazy, just brand new. The rest of my money is either in investments or working on my next patent project. Which brings us to my problem. Recently, my girlfriend brought up the idea of me paying more of the rent and utilities according to a percentage of our pay. This means I would be paying almost all of everything. She said it's only fair as I make so much more. And I countered, how fair is it if I'm paying for almost everything now, when we split things equally when she was making more? I pointed out our housing and lifestyle hasn't changed at all. So it's not like she's burdened by the cost of living. She keeps on arguing about equality and I argue about equality too. But apparently our definition of equality is different. Am I wrong for sticking to our original terms? Answers to common questions. I don't know how to update besides editing, so here it is. 1. My girlfriend is not a terrible person. I was around 185 and dropped to 160s. Most people didn't notice that my clothes were looser. As I spent most of my time studying and working my job than working on my patent, we didn't spend that much time together. 2. I never brought up the lack of money and food because I don't complain. I ate at home with her but didn't eat anything outside. I sucked it up, so it wasn't her fault. 3. Besides this disagreement, we have a good relationship and she's a good person. 4. Some DM me about patent procedure and cost. It's complicated, so do your own research. What I did was file a provisional patent application. It's not a full patent, but it protects my design so that I can show investors without worrying about them stealing my idea. When you get a provisional patent, you can legally use the patent pending terms. I filed as a micro-entity, which costs under $100. I'm not sure of the cost now since it's probably gone up. Once I was sure my design was marketable, I filed for a utility patent. This costs about $15,000 including attorney fees. Once again, I filed as a micro-entity. I had to borrow money from my parents and went on a diet, but it was worth it. Now for the comments. I just want to be clear. You were making $18K a year. She was making over 4 times your salary. You were literally starving because you could not afford food. You lost 20 pounds while she focused on her savings and disposable income. This is not a partnership between people who love each other. Relationships change and evolve with time. Keeping finances totally separate while dating is a different matter than doing so as you get married. It's not a matter of constant keeping to an agreement made a decade ago. But caring when your partner is literally starving is a pretty consistent requirement, no matter the stage of your relationship. Not today whole simply because finances are the least of the problem in this relationship. Yeah, definitely this. And now she wants to call unfair. That is just nuts to me. Rules for the not for me. This is going to be a consistent pattern in their relationship moving forward if he capitulates. If they're married, I can understand sharing the burden and running the household, but they should definitely still keep the finances separate. And OP should get a prenup before tying the knot, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. If nothing has changed in your lifestyle, I don't see why you should pay more. Sounds like before she was thriving, and now you both are, so you should both be enjoying it. Yeah, if OP wanted to move somewhere drastically more expensive because he could afford it, then it would be the time to revisit the agreement. He was able to barely survive on less than a quarter of what she makes, so she is clearly not burdened by the present arrangement. If he could afford that, then she should be able to afford early retirement if they aren't having kids. OP of course could retire next year and be totally fine, but I don't suspect he wants to. Anyway, girlfriend sounds greedy and uncaring. Not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my wife who doesn't work more pocket money? I, male 27, can't help but feel like an a-hole about the situation, and my wife, female 23, has been calling me an a-hole the whole week. Meanwhile, our close family are taking my side and friends are split. I, for one, don't see what I can do. For context, we live in Europe. The issue is the following. My in-laws have the amount of money they give my wife each month, and she wants me to make up the difference out of pocket. For it to make sense, I have to explain our finances. I am a medical resident. My pay is pitiful, frankly. But it doesn't matter because I have real estate properties and make a decent amount of passive income from rent. My wife does not work because she is still in law school and her time is full between that and taking care of our son, 2-year-old. So here's the situation. 20% of my income goes straight into our savings. This I will not budge on, come hell or high water. About 40 to 60% goes into household expenses. This includes the nanny/housekeeper, food, gas, electricity, and my wife's school expenses. The percentage varies each month, of course, but lately, due to the war, all these expenses have risen, so it's always on the higher side. The rest of the money is split between my wife and I, but not evenly, and here is why. Before we even got married, my wife had an agreement with her parents that as long as she stayed in law school and kept her grades high, she would receive minimum wage from them, so she didn't have to work and could focus on school. When we got married, I promised to give her half of what her parents gave her each month. This way, our monthly pocket change would be roughly the same. This agreement has worked for the past 4 years. Unfortunately, this midterms her grades dropped. They're not terrible, mind you, but her parents have high standards, so until she can get her grades back up in February, they said they'd have her monthly pay. I kept the amount I give her the same. Essentially, she receives minimum wage now. My wife has asked me to increase how much I give her to make up the difference. I refused, and I still refuse, because my income didn't magically increase in a month. I pointed out that she had an agreement with her parents and me, that her decrease in her money is a result of her actions. I upheld my side of the bargain and told her she will just have to deal with a little less personal money for a couple of months until she can get her grades back up. I'm 100% certain she can do this. She maintained this isn't fair and that as her husband, I should take care of her. She said I could just lower how much I keep to myself or raise the rent since I already rent under the market price. I told her I am not raising rent and leaving people homeless in these uncertain times, and that if I give her more from my own side, I'd almost have nothing left for myself each month. I really wish I could give her more. I do, but I can't magically make more money, and I think I deserve a little for myself as well. In my opinion, her receiving minimum wage without working is enough. So am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I felt bad until I read nanny and your wife's school expenses. Frankly, she's an adult, and she's lucky her parents and you are giving her anything. There are people out there studying, looking after children and still have to work. What does your wife need the money for if you're paying for everything else? Right? As soon as I read the title, I was ready to call him an A. The more I read, the more I was surprised by the entitlement of the wife. She basically gets a decent income only to stay in school. Most students don't. Also, please don't say that she gets the income to be a stay-at-home mom because her toddler is only 2. It is clear that she got this income even when she was childless. Moreover, she has a nanny/housekeeper. Also, her reasoning is that you're her husband so you should pay her? And the fact she wanted to raise the rent to people that do work and are likely less wealthy. Sure, it's not easy studying and taking care of a child, but she has all the means to succeed. My mom graduated law school with 2 kids. A job, no housekeeper/nanny, and the highest grade possible. Obviously, not the a-hole. She is, just for even thinking that. I felt bad for the wife's full plate. Until you said nanny? And housekeeper. I don't disagree with not the a-hole. However, Opie didn't state how often the housekeeper comes. At their income, I don't think daily housekeeping is an option, so the wife likely has to clean most days. He pays for rent, electricity, gas, food, nanny, housekeeper, and his wife's school expenses, and then gives her half the rate of minimum wage. Why should she get more of his own spending money than him if he's also paying for everything? If she has to do laundry and clean up a little clutter and get an allowance, she's getting an amazing deal. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my sister 50% of my small business? I started a small business in July 2020, and about 8 months in, I hired my older sister to do some administrative work for me. She had recently had a baby and was not planning on returning to work but still needed a little money. So she asked if there was anything she could do to help the business, and I said yes. Her responsibilities included answering some emails, organizing existing spreadsheets, and reaching out to other business, which was her background, though none of the reaching out led anywhere. She clocked about 5 to 8 hours of work per week, and I paid her $25 per hour. I still created a product for the client, answered follow-up emails from the client, handled the financials, and ran the social media and website. About a year in, we decided to do a rebrand. We hired someone to make a new logo, and I built a new website. About 5 months before the launch of the rebrand, she asked if we could get something in writing, an employment contract. It also expressed an interest in owning a part of the business. I told her we could definitely get something in writing, and I would think about the part's ownership. 3 months later, I suggested a 70-30 split, to which she disagreed. She said she was looking for a 50-50. I said I was definitely not comfortable with a 50-50, and the highest I would ever go would be 51-49. She responded with, "What's the point of being part owner when your decision would still be the final say?" Again, I told her I would think about it. 2 weeks before the launch of the rebrand, I was talking to my husband and made a comment about having to give her 50% to keep the peace. He advised me to write down my financial contribution to the company versus hers. Obviously, the financial, let alone time commitment, was staggering. I presented her with a spreadsheet of tiers to buy into the company, 10% for free, and then tiered payments all the way up to 49%. She was very angry, saying that I had blindsided her, betrayed her, and even went as far to say she built my business. I've apologized for not bringing it up until the week before the launch, but she refuses to speak to me. She refuses to come to family Thanksgiving or Christmas, and it's tearing my family apart. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She was an employee. You paid her a wage to do a job. You have the financial interest in the company. If she hasn't invested her own money, why does she think she's entitled to any form of ownership interest? Oh goodness. Why in the world did you offer her 49%? This is where you let it get cloudy because she's your sister. She did hourly work for an hourly wage. I would take all of that off the table. If you want to sell her some interest in the company, go ahead. But you already got a taste of what this will be like. Exactly. Had this been anyone else asking for a share in the business, would Opie have done this? Not the a-hole. And if she feels this entitled now, how will she be like if she gets a share? Opie should completely sever business ties with his sister. Edit, and if greedy and entitled sister still has access to any of the systems, email/website accounts, bank access, etc., kick her out immediately and change passwords. Secure those things before she helps herself to them or make a mess in there. You know she'll hide behind family to avoid prosecution. And if you're feeling this badly about not giving her shares that she hasn't earned, I doubt you'd file charges against her if she steals from you or ruins your business's reputation. Yep, employee share ownership is a thing some businesses do where I live, but I can tell you now that I wasn't given 50% of the shares. I purchased my shares in the same scheme every other employee can use, and it was a lot less than 50% of the shares just for turning up as just an employee, not an owner or investor. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not continuing all of my grandmother's tradition by not paying for my cousin's college housing? My grandmother passed away this summer, and in her will, I was left a small home in the college town that I live in. This house was where I, as well as my siblings and some other members of my family, lived while we pursued our degrees. My grandmother made rent equal to expenses plus a bit extra to cover regular maintenance. It was a stellar deal for college, and it holds a lot of fond memories. I feel very fortunate to have received this house and intend on continuing her legacy with the space. I have told my family, there are 4 remaining cousins who are not college-aged yet, that I intend on continuing renting the house out at cost to family members if they chose to pursue a degree at the college where this house is located, or if they choose to take a job in the area during their college-age years. Here is where the dilemma comes in. When I made this announcement, I received a call from a cousin who is currently attending a different college that is nowhere near the home I inherited. She wanted to know how much I intended on sending her for her housing when she moved off campus next fall, as my grandmother did give some money for her grandchildren who chose not to go to college where the house was. Not nearly enough to make the deal that the house was, but from my understanding, it was equal to a couple $100s a month. And when I told her I was not planning on sending any money for her housing, she went off screaming that I was disgracing my grandmother's legacy, and that grandma would have wanted me to fulfill the entire legacy of college housing generosity. I am not a wealthy person. I did not receive any money in the inheritance, just a house. And even that, I have had to spend a fair amount of money in repairs to get home back to the prime condition, as non-family tenants had moved out during her passing, and they took advantage of the lack of supervision during the legal red tape surrounding the house. So I told her that even if I wanted to fulfill the whole legacy, I didn't have the money, and that was it. Now I have family members calling, stating that I am now forcing their children to choose this school near the house when everyone else got to choose. I feel guilty, but it's not like they can't go to another school. They will just have to pay for 100% of their housing. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You are carrying on a part of the tradition that she left to you, period. If your grandmother wanted you to send your cousins money, she needed to leave you a bank account of money with which to do it. After the repairs are paid off, if you are actually making money off the house, you can revisit using that money to restart that other part. But that's clearly not happening right now. Presumably, she did leave money split up between many people, but it's harder to convince a group of people to pay a little bit than to use group pressure to harass one person into paying for it all. Am I the a-hole for calling out my future sister-in-law after she compared being pregnant to my fiancé going through cancer treatment? My fiancé Joe is undergoing treatment for bone cancer in his leg and pelvis. He had surgery and is now doing chemo. His family has been supportive, except for his sister Alexis. She has a 2-year-old that is 7 months pregnant, and she often accuses Joe of using his illness as an excuse to not help drive her places because she doesn't drive or watch a toddler. She got upset when he wouldn't give her money that was raised to help him while he's out of work, going so far as to make her own online fundraiser, and she would post the link anytime his mother shared a link to his. Mind you, Alexis is not working right now, but she lives with her mother who provides for her every need. I've tried to be patient knowing she's in a difficult position being a single mom of soon-to-be 2 little ones. Regardless, my frustration boiled over yesterday and I would like some feedback. Their mom hosted a combined baby shower for Alexis and birthday party for the 2-year-old. Joe wanted to go, but before guests arrived, he started feeling pretty tired and sick and went to his mom's room to lay down. He slept through the whole event and woke up shortly after we had cleaned up. Family members had been asking where he was and expressed concern when I said he was upstairs sleeping. I don't think Alexis liked that people were asking about him, so when he woke up, she complained that he got to take a nap while she handled everything. Which wasn't true because me, her mom and her best friend took care of everything. Alexis just helped with cleanup. I didn't know what to say at the time, so I kept quiet. Joe, for the most part, ignored her as well, so I followed his lead. The following day, yesterday, she posted pictures of the event and the first line of the post said, "Thank you to everyone who woke up yesterday and chose to celebrate my sons and me." I texted her, "What's the first part of your post supposed to mean? You know, Joe wouldn't have missed his nephew's party for the world. He's exhausted." She said, "Cry me a river. I'm tired and hurting too, but you don't see me napping during important family events." I sent her pictures of him throughout his treatment, sleeping in the chemo chair, sleeping in the car, pushing through physical therapy, etc. And I sent the following. "I don't doubt that you're tired, but Joe is sick and literally just trying to live. I hope someday you learn to support your brother instead of being jealous, indignant, or whatever it is." I sent screenshots to their mom and asked her to talk some sense to Alexis. After which, Alexis texted me one more time calling me an a-hole, among other names. Now that I've had time to cool off, I'm wondering if it was even my place to call her out. Joe was ignoring her. Their mom was ignoring her, so maybe I should have too. She just frustrates me so much. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Having witnessed someone battling cancer and chemo, Christ, I can't say what I'd like to say about the sister-in-law. Seriously, what a witch. My mom is a breast cancer survivor. It's so hard. I hope you and your loved one are doing okay. I would have went even further and publicly asked why she's so jealous of a cancer sufferer getting attention, that competing with a sick man makes her trashy. I watched my ex-mother-in-law do chemo 3 times. I've seen how tired and wrecked people are after those treatments, and wouldn't wish that on anyone, and would never dream of trying to say someone is just using it to get out of things. Not a-hole. I'd post on her post a reply saying something like, "Thanks to everyone who had heart to express concern for my husband who is exhausted from his chemo treatments. His love for his family got him to the party, but sometimes the treatments are too much on him and he needs to rest." This is the way. Alexis is a grade A witch with main character syndrome. Sorry, too much emotion, I know. Not a-hole. I was a mom of 5 when I found out I had colon cancer. I know people are different, but I can assure you that none of my pregnancies compared to cancer. I hope you're okay and doing well now. For people with complaining mindset, a pinprick is definitely worse than stage 4 cancer. Hope you're doing good. Sending you hugs. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to celebrate my brother's recovery because he was driving while drunk? Plus update. Original post. I-19 female, have a brother 21 male who has been spoiled rotten. He gets away with anything. He doesn't listen or take orders from anybody, and my parents don't seem to care about his attitude. There's been many fights about this. My brother was driving under the influence and crashed into 2 cars on the highway. He was in the hospital for a good while, don't remember exactly how long. Everyone was worried about his condition, and each day has just been non-stop worrying about whether he was going to be okay. There's been a couple fights, because my parents said the incident didn't matter too much. As long as the people involved in the crash didn't die, I could not believe it. Well, he was able to recover and my parents wanted to throw a party to celebrate his recovery. I was happy he was okay, but I have no sympathy for drunk drivers. My childhood friend died from a drunk driving accident, and I had to go into therapy for it. I had a problem with this because it felt like they didn't care that 2 people got hit. I voiced this opinion, and I got crucified basically. My parents said I was a bad sister for not being happy for my brother. I said I was happy, but it's like they didn't even care. And the reason he's allowed to get away with crap like this is because they keep filling his thick head with illusions. I'll admit, I got a tiny bit emotional because I remembered my friend's death, so I just went to my room and slammed the door. My dad came banging on my door yelling, "I hope you're freaking happy." I deeply regret even saying anything now. But am I wrong for thinking it's weird and disrespectful that they don't even care about the situation just because nobody died, and not wanting to celebrate my brother? Edit. By recovery, I mean in terms of injuries. As far as I know, my brother's been charged. I'm currently on the way to my boyfriend's house now because I can't stand my family. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole, but I would have attended and gave him a toast. To my brother, the drunk, who nearly killed 2 people and himself. Make sure to include the enablers. Parents. Yes, to my brother, who narrowly escaped death, who included strangers in his narrow escape. My brother, who drove drunk, who very nearly killed 2 people who were just going about their daily lives. And to my parents who think celebrating this, when they know full well my best friend died at the hands of someone just like my dear brother. A drunk who got behind the wheel and didn't care about the lives they tore apart. Long may we celebrate his reckless behavior. Drink up, because we all know how much my brother loves his drinks. Can you imagine what Opie's parents would have done to her after that? Horrified, a father would speak to his child the way he did Opie. Sad. They have pretty much ruined their son by never holding him accountable. Bad parenting 100%. Opie's not a-hole at all, but her family is. Absolutely not a-hole. I am disgusted with your parents especially, since they have to have known about the circumstances of your friend's death, and they should understand why you feel the way you do about this. Right? The words my mother used when discussing drunk driving with me as a teenager were, "If you ever got a DUI, do yourself a favor and don't call me. You'll be safer in jail than out on bail." I have multiple relatives who have lost licenses for drunk driving, and I cannot for the life of me understand why it's not a bigger deal than it is. Let alone why my mom and some other relatives actually go out of their ways to help the drunk drivers get groceries and similar stuff that's harder to do now without a car. In my opinion, if they didn't care enough about other people's lives to find a safer means of transport than drunk driving, why should anyone else care to help them avoid the inconvenience of taking the bus or walking? Like, I realize they all grew up in an extremely dramatic setting, and the drunk drivers of the group are definitely alcoholics. That doesn't excuse anything in my eyes though. I've never said anything against this because not my circus, not my monkeys. Why start anything when it doesn't directly concern me? But it's not a dynamic I want anything to do with. Now for the update. I had to make a new account because something went wrong. I just wanted to write this update because lots happened overnight. My boyfriend's family is allowing me to stay with them for a while because my family is absolutely unhinged. My dad decided to show up to my boyfriend's house and cause a scene. I guess my little tantrum worked because he announced that they're not having the party anymore. He also said my brother hates me now, which I don't really care. He has also been charged, for those who don't know. An argument started and it was basically like the argument that took place before. He kept saying I wasn't happy for my brother, and I said for the millionth time, I was happy that he came out fine in the end, but celebrating it and enabling his behavior isn't okay. It was absolutely embarrassing, because this was at my boyfriend's house, in front of his entire family, and they were trying to calm us down. As you guys know, my best friend since we were toddlers passed away at the hands of a drunk driver a day after she turned 19. That messed me up so bad, to the point where I had to go to therapy for some time. And considering that next month will be a year since her passing, this entire situation has hurt me. When I brought this up to my dad, he said, "I'm sorry about that, but if it's almost a year, you should be over it by now." I just told him I'll go back to get my things and leave, because they obviously didn't care about how I felt. I'm back at my boyfriend's house now, and they have been comforting me. Nothing hurt me more than my dad telling me to just get over my friend's death, because I've known her my whole life. Anyway, this is just how things are so far. I blocked my parents and brother and everything. Now that I've calmed down a bit and I have tons of support, I feel a little relieved. June 18th would have been her 20th birthday, and June 19th will be a year since some heartless monster took her life away. So I'm making both days all about her, even though she's not physically here with me. Thanks to everyone for the amazing replies. I sympathize with everyone who has lost a loved one / gotten injured because of idiots who think it's acceptable to drink and drive. I love all of you, and I know my friend is rooting for me from above. Last story. Am I the a-hole for calling my sister disgusting and banning her, my niece, and my mother from my house? The title absolutely makes me sound like a jerk. I apologize in advance for the novella. Part of this is me venting, but I do want some outside perspective in whether or not I've had too strong of a reaction, especially considering there are kids involved. My husband and I are both 23. My sister is 27 and has 3 kids. My 11-year-old niece, my 7-year-old nephew, and my 1-year-old nephew. My sister broke up with the baby's father and has been struggling some. My mom watches the kids while she works, when the older 2 aren't in school, and my husband and I have been watching them one day every other weekend. My 11-year-old niece is developing some really bad behaviors that we are trying to offset when we have her by teaching her self-regulation, boundaries, and healthy communication. This past weekend was terrible. My niece was on a level 100 all day. and had been mouthing off, etc. My husband took her tablet and calmly told her to go sit in our bed for a timeout. I walked away because I needed a breather, but then I heard my husband yelp. He was red in the face and hunched over, and I could immediately tell that she had hit him between his legs. Apparently, badly enough that he went outside and threw up a short time later. Sorry for the gross detail, but it emphasizes why I'm so upset. Things calmed down. When my sister came to get them, I was fixing dinner. The older two were watching a movie, and my husband was holding the baby with an ice pack in his lap. My sister came and I pulled her into the kitchen and told her what happened. I told her that unless my niece's behavior improves, she can't come over, but we could still watch my nephews. Her first response was a snide, she would never do something like that, to which I responded that I had witnessed it. This is where I really got angry. When she couldn't come up with another excuse, she said, "I don't like how he is drawing attention to his private area. That's very inappropriate around kids," referring to the damn ice pack. Before I lost it, I said she was disgusting and that she needed to get her kids' things and leave, which thankfully she did. But then a short time later, our mother calls me fuming, saying I'm being an a-hole and overreacting. I told her that for as long as she keeps that opinion before even hearing our side, then she's not welcomed either. I said we can all have a discussion about boundaries and expectations, but until then, don't contact us, especially to ask for help. I really don't think so, but am I the a-hole? Now for the comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole, but your niece's behavior is really alarming, and it will only get worse from here if she doesn't get help. If I were in your situation, I'd ban them until things change. Don't feel like you're overreacting. If your husband is vomiting from the pain, that's a valid reaction, especially if your sister refuses to acknowledge the problem and then gaslight you. Physical attack aside, your niece and sister could land you in trouble with law enforcement or CPS. I honestly would cut them off completely. This right here, her trying to flip around and insinuate that your husband was being inappropriate with the kids, was the start of something. It sounds like the sister comes from a line of manipulative mothers, and her child is the golden child who can't do no wrong. All the while, the kid is actively learning to be manipulative without consequence. And that's difficult to fix, because the first victim of a manipulator is themselves. They think, I am the victim. I can do no wrong. I'm glad Opie seems normal and on their husband's side. You're not even a little bit the a-hole. You're offering free childcare and doing your sister a huge favor. Her kid physically attacks your husband in a really ugly way, and your sister tries to attack you and your husband over it? You should decline to watch any of her children anymore, if this is how she's going to treat you. She's taking advantage of you, and utterly lacks appreciation for your free services. Your mom is also an a-hole, and I can see why your sister had a kid at 16 and is massively entitled. I'd suggest drawing some much stronger boundaries with your family. I agree with it so much. It sounds like the sister gets a lot of help from the family and only has the kids to herself 2 weekends a month, with basically everyone else running to help her. She sounds selfish, like she expects everyone to help her. I hope she stops having kids because she's not acting like a good parent. I would be mortified if my kid did that. I mean, the husband still has a nice pack in hours later, and her response is that it's not appropriate to draw attention to that area? Girl, your daughter already did that because of your terrible parenting. Not the a-hole. Update. Thanks everyone for the support. I've gotten a lot to think about, and I'm reassured that I'm not overreacting. A couple things to note. My husband was not in the bedroom with her. He was telling her to go to our room for a timeout, which is what we normally do. He is taking off work to go to urgent care this morning because he is still in a lot of pain. I think my sister's allegation is so that she can trick herself into believing she ended babysitting with us, instead of the other way around. Mom's always been more supportive of her, so the more I think about it, the less I'm surprised by how she immediately took my sister aside. I haven't spoken to either of them and don't plan to. Second update. Good, bad, and ugly. The bad is that urgent care sent hubby to the ER, at which point I left work to go join him. One of his testicles was dislocated, but thankfully it didn't ascend too far. With some pain meds, a doctor was able to push it back into place. I was scared at first, because they said surgery would be an option if this didn't work. But thankfully it did. The good is that we are now home and he's feeling much better, but still kind of bruised. I told him lots of internet strangers were invested in the well-being of his manhood, which made him belly laugh. The ugly is, and I'm standing by him on this, he absolutely does not want to give any medical bills to my sister. His point is that she will likely retaliate even worse than just being confronted with what her daughter did. And I agree. So in that sense, we're stuck. I didn't get the full story before, but essentially, when he told her to give him the tablet, she turned away from him and kicked her leg back. He said it got her heel. She's also not little for her age, and I'm just glad it wasn't worse. Boundaries are set. As much as we love the kids, we're just going to have to get okay with not seeing anyone. My sister, female 30, is obsessed with my female 31 boyfriend, male 37. I'll start by saying that I love my sister very much, even though we have never been very close. Something that's always caused tension between us is that she can be quite a jealous and insecure person. It is always comparing herself and her life to others, particularly me. She has in the past frequently expressed jealousy over my appearance, weight, career, friends, travels, etc. But the one aspect of our lives that she's always felt superior to me over is our love lives. I have had really bad luck when it comes to love. I had one relationship that was physically, emotionally, and sexually abusive, and as a result, dating has been quite hard for me. And I have a difficult time trusting men. I was single for years. Meanwhile, she had been with the same guy for 8 years and was always talking about how great and stable he was, all the gifts he would give her, etc. Then in 2017, I met my partner. We instantly connected on a level I'd never experienced before. And after many months of being just friends and getting closer and closer in the name of platonic friendship, we eventually told each other how we really felt and began dating. I cannot express enough how much I love this man. He makes me feel adored, safe, supported, and appreciated. He's witty and smart and hilarious, and gentle and sexy. We moved in together in 2019 and life has been blissful. Also, in 2019, my sister fell pregnant. Her partner told her he was getting ready to propose. However, about 5 months after the birth of my niece, he decided he didn't want to be with my sister anymore and left. This was very traumatic for my sister, especially since this was around the time COVID was kicking off and lockdowns were being announced. And all of a sudden, she was facing being a single mom. Thankfully, she lived close to my parents and was able to form a bubble with her household, so she had their support. And when lockdowns eased, my boyfriend and I would help out whenever we could. It's been incredible watching my niece, female 3, grow up, and it's been lovely watching my boyfriend to be so good with her. He has 4 nephews, so he knows how to be a fun uncle, play with kids and talk to them, etc. This is where the weirdness started. It began with my sister making constant comments about how good my boyfriend is with kids. I would agree with her, but then she'd make digs about how it's such a shame he's with someone who wants to be child-free, aka me, and it's such a waste of a good man, that he was born to be a dad, etc. Soon, she would start sighing about how my boyfriend is perfect and how she needs to find another him. Again, I would agree because in my opinion, he really is the perfect package. And I would love for my sister to find someone as great as him. But it soon became evident she doesn't want someone like him. She just wants him. She began saying he was the main male figure in her daughter's life, and that he was the closest thing my niece had to a father. When my niece started talking and familiarizing herself with our roles, he would call him uncle, but then all of a sudden she started calling him daddy. I would always gently correct her and say, "No, darling, that's your uncle." But one time my sister heard this and she yelled at me for correcting her daughter and said I need to leave it alone, that it doesn't matter if she calls my boyfriend daddy. This is when I got really uncomfortable and put my foot down and told her she needed to stop confusing her daughter and stop allowing her to think my boyfriend is her daddy. I feel like my sister knows that letting my niece call my boyfriend daddy is only going to confuse her. But I also feel like she doesn't care because she likes to pretend my boyfriend is the daddy. After that fight, things got quite tense between us and my sister started snapping at me over everything I did, while still mooning over my partner and telling him how amazing he is. A few times my partner had to stick up for me and tell my sister not to speak to me like that in our house, which always bruised her. Things hit a boiling point last weekend. She asked us to babysit my niece for a couple of hours while she gets her hair trimmed. This wasn't ideal, as my boyfriend was doing something that required a lot of concentration and quiet that morning. Plus, we had an engagement later that afternoon. So I reluctantly agreed but explained to my sister that we needed to leave at a certain time, so she really had to be back by then. My sister is very disrespectful of other people's time and has no regard for other people's lives. It's always all about her. I took my niece to the park to let my boyfriend have some peace and quiet. We played for a while, then sat and had a coffee and baby chino at my local cafe before eventually returning home. I expected my sister to be returning soon too, as agreed, but she was a no-show. Time is ticking. My boyfriend and I really need to get going. I'm ringing my sister and she's not answering. I'm stressed. Then all of a sudden she turns up 40-odd minutes late. I'm angry, but I don't even have the time to get into it with her, so I just start to say goodbye to my niece. That's when my sister noticed what she insisted was mold on my niece's shoes. She asked or yelled at me if I let her walk in puddles. I said she may have accidentally stepped in a puddle while at a park, but she wasn't jumping in them. My sister then started ranting like a lunatic at me, that I was not to let her go in puddles without gumboots, and that because of my thoughtlessness the shoes are now moldy. I said that's not how mold works. It doesn't grow after 3 hours. It can't be mold. Or if it is mold, it isn't there because of me. Mold does not grow in 3 hours. But my sister can't be told. She screamed at me, called me thoughtless and an idiot with no common sense or maternal instincts. I stepped outside during this argument and told her she was acting appallingly in front of her daughter. That's when she closed the back door on me and locked it, locking me out of my house. My house. I banged and demanded she unlock the door, and she said, "Not until you calm down did I feel it safe for you to be around my daughter." I was so disgusted at her audacity. How dare she lock me out of my own home? I went around to the front door, but she had locked that too. Luckily, I had my phone in my pocket. So I rang my boyfriend and told him to let me in because she had locked me out of the house. He was upstairs and had no idea any of this had happened. When he opened the door for me, I have never seen him look so angry in my life. He was furious, but he kept his cool and calmly but firmly told my sister to get out. That he was sick of her being so disrespectful to me when I bent over backwards trying to help her, and that she was no longer welcome under his roof until she apologized to me. She scoffed and said that's never going to happen. Then she left. It's been a few days, and since then she has been blowing up my boyfriend's phones with texts. He's shown them all to me. In them, she apologizes to him, not to me though, saying she's stressed out being a single mom, and that she gets no support from her family, and that the only support she has is him. My boyfriend replied saying that the only time he's around her or my niece is when I'm there too. So her saying that is proof that she does not appreciate or see the amount of support I give her. My sister replied saying it's not the same because I'm not a maternal person and would never be a good mother, so I don't get it like he does. Then she sent message after message, each more insane and inappropriate than the last, saying she wishes he was my niece's father, that he's everything she's ever wanted in a man, that they would make such a good team, that she's more compatible for him than I am, and that it breaks her heart every day she sees him wasting his life with me. There were also texts where she talked about how great he looks and smells. My boyfriend replied with, "This is not appropriate nor appreciated. I'm not comfortable receiving these messages and ask you please not contact me again until you have resolved things with Opie." Then he blocked her. I'm just at a loss on where to go from here. I love my niece so much and want to be in her life. I'm worried about my sister. I can see she's struggling. I want to help her, but this situation has become so toxic. Nothing I do is good enough. I'm tired of being screamed at for everything I do wrong and being told I don't have good maternal instincts, when others who have seen me with my niece tell me I'm doing a great job. I may not want to be a mother, but I do want to be an aunt, and it hurts my feelings to have everything I try to do for my sister gets dismissed. Then there's my sister's feelings towards my boyfriend, which at this point feels like a freaking obsession. I feel like both he and I have been disrespected hugely by her. How do we navigate that? I genuinely have no idea what to do, and it hurts my heart. Please help. Now for the top advice. Holy smokes, this is mad. Like, it's basically the plot of one of those Lifetime movies where your sister slowly transforms herself into your doppelganger and tries to literally replace you. Super goddamn creepy. Very glad to hear your partner has her back on this. Honestly, I don't even know if there's any advice to give here if she's resistant to therapy, etc. and thinks she's done nothing wrong. She almost certainly has some kind of personality disorder going on given how she's acted. The best thing you can probably do is keep an eye out for your niece even from a distance. If the only parent she has is this unstable, It's pretty likely she won't have the greatest home life once she starts having her own ideas and opinions. You could think about insisting on family counseling with your sister as a prerequisite for you, or your partner spending any more time with her or your niece. If there's a chance, it might improve things. But honestly, I don't think your sister will be happy until she feels like she's better than you again, which probably means her getting into another relationship. It sucks that you may have to miss out on time with your niece as a result of this, but her behavior is just so utterly insane. I'm not sure there's anything else you can do except avoid her. I genuinely think she has a personality disorder too. I've thought this since we were teenagers, to be honest, but the past few years are the worst it's ever been. She always thinks she's the victim, and that everything she does and thinks is correct. It's always black and white with her, and she's never wrong. In one of her texts to my boyfriend, she told him I was not allowed around her daughter until I apologized to her and take accountability for the mold on the shoes that miraculously grew in a couple of hours. She actually walked away from that day thinking she was owed the apology. It's maddening. For a while, I've assumed that her crush on my boyfriend would go away once she found someone else. But she's currently in some sort of weird situationship with an older man. Sounds like a sugar daddy situation, to be honest. And it hasn't helped at all. Sadly, I think avoiding her completely is the only thing to do at the moment. But it makes me so sad and really worried for my niece. Now for the last story. My friend who has chased married men before may now be into my husband. Plus update. Original post. When my friend first got together with her ex-husband, she was in a serious relationship with her then boyfriend, and he was married with kids. Long story short, they both left the relationship and had a shotgun wedding. 3 kids later, he left her to move to another state. Surprise! The ex-boyfriend she cheated on is now married. And guess what? One day, she saw him online, so she texted to me and said maybe it's a sign from the universe that she should talk to him. She asked me if he is happy in his marriage. I told her he seems happy and she should stay away. Apparently, she wasn't happy with my answer, so she asked my husband the same question. Again, my husband told her the ex is very happy. Recently, she has been bombarding my husband with random messages of spirituality. She got into it during her divorce. She would send him paragraphs and paragraphs of random thoughts, even though sometimes he would go on days without replying her. When he does, it would be a simple, "I'm busy with kids," or even a swear word. And then she would go again. She somehow figured out my husband's birthday and asked him why we never celebrated that. It's private and my husband never celebrates it with friends. And texted him to question him on what he has against weddings and then gave him reasons why weddings are great. We had a small wedding and she wasn't invited, so maybe she thinks that we didn't have one? My husband did not respond to that question. One day, she texted me to see how I'm doing in my marriage. I told her it's not as romantic as before, which is fine because we are focusing on kids. Then she mentioned how she is fine by herself and said I can find someone else romantic too. I tried to dismiss it like it was a ridiculous joke, but she just wouldn't drop it. The next day, she tried to bring it up again. My husband and I were going to move, and she asked me if that's what I wanted. I could sense that she was trying to make me doubt my husband again. And luckily for her, that was actually my idea. In the days that followed, she sensed something was wrong, and even tried to explain herself and how it is not in her place to suggest I leave my husband. She said how she was actually talking to a guy and explicitly say that it was not my husband, as if that would exonerate her, a known two-timer. Then she said she would not bother my husband again. But then she didn't stop. She's now sending my husband paragraphs and paragraphs of thoughts again like before. My husband responds to her sometimes because he thinks that she needs someone to talk to. They also sometimes exchange investment ideas because it's their common interest. He is worried about her mental state, and that if no one talks to her, she would harm herself. My husband knew my friend long before we were together, so I didn't mind their independent friendship. But I suspect now that she's pursuing something more. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Your friend is a freaking wacko. Huh, I really need to hear this. So I'm not a crazy one. The fact that you are still friends with this person. What can I do? Unfriend her? She's unstable and trying to cause issues in your family. This really isn't hard. When my friend first got together with her ex-husband, she was in a serious relationship with her then boyfriend and he was married with kids. Long story short, they both left the relationship and had a shotgun wedding. 3 kids later, he left her to move to another state. Curious why you chose to remain friends with someone like this. From everything I know, female homewreckers are really fun to hang out with, in much the same way male homewreckers are. They tend to be the life of the party. They tend to be very gregarious and outgoing. They tend to tell the best jokes. They have very magnetic personalities. They tend to be emotionally intelligent and, well, seductive. It is part of what makes them so dangerous. They are so much fun that their cheating behavior aimed at others outside their friend group can all be forgiven, right up until you stop and realize, what if they ever turned up the charm around my girlfriend/wife? Or what if she ever turned her wiles upon my boyfriend/husband? This is a great description of what it's like to be friends with someone who ends up like that. Holy smokes. It's not so simple. We have at least 20 mutual friends and I'm bound to bump into her at some gathering. Also, keep your friends close and enemies closer. She can still keep friending my husband. What kind of friends are these that you can't talk to them about her antics and just have everyone kick her from the group? If they don't care about it and prefers not making waves, then it's time to make a choice. Either continue hanging out with your friend group and risk your marriage and family to tolerate her, or gradually distance yourself from everyone and focus more on your family. You can always make new friends. Why isn't your husband blocking her? They have no reason to text each other. Like I said, she's going through a divorce and my husband worries that she would harm herself if he completely blocks her. Your husband isn't her therapist. She should not be emotionally relying on him. He needs to set boundaries, especially if it's making you uncomfortable. And now for the update. Thank you all for those who replied. At first, I thought I was paranoid for thinking that my friend is out of line. However, not one single person says that it is platonic, or that she's going through a divorce, so cut her some slack. The answer was so simple. We needed to cut her out of our lives. I confronted her yesterday, and she dared to reply back and said how those spiritual messages were supposed to help my husband treat me better. She made it sound like she had no one to talk to besides him, while there were at least 10 other women from our group including me. I told her that she needs to see a therapist, that he is not her therapist, and she said she will talk to herself and she can be her own therapist. I have had enough and sent her one final message. You need to understand that there are boundaries with married men, and your past behavior indicated otherwise. Let me be clear, there is no place for you in my marriage. I thought it was good enough to keep her at arm's length, but my sisters told me no after reading this post. Both my husband and I were so blind. My husband has very low opinion of her and she is no threat to my marriage. However, she can still drive us apart. I am a working mom and have no time to monitor the situation. So, we both blocked her. It's over and I am so relieved. It's been like 6 months. I really thought the ex-friend would escalate after being blocked. Lol. Sounds like they moved. So maybe that's why. Or, she moved on to some other married man. I probably would have reassessed my relationship with a friend the first time she chased after a married man if I was OP. When you hang around someone who makes a habit of cheating and destroying relationships, you shouldn't be too surprised when they set their sights on your relationship. On a related thought, anyone else think the friend is mentally ill? Her behavior seems a bit erratic. She seems a bit too comfortable lying and manipulating, and a comment about how she'll be her own therapist set off alarm bells for me. Same. We can disagree on many views, but cheating is one of the bare minimum standards for ethics. I can't stand people who say, I don't have an obligation to the spouse/significant other of my affair partner. They're the one cheating. Listen here, a-hole. Trash and garbage are synonyms. I could never be friends with people who go after married men/women. I had a coworker like that once. You know what happened? The ex-husband of one of the women he slept with sent him to the hospital for 3 months. Good that Opie and her husband blocked her out of their lives.